Hi, my name is Rory Canterbury. I'm going to be hosting on Archery Talk 101, and we have John Walker on the show with us today, and we're going to have a real fun time talking about archery, as we always do. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. First of all, start a bit off about my background. I started off archery back in 2014. I had a bad RTA in 2011. And it left me with a partly paralysed right arm, so my upper shoulder's gone in my right arm. And I didn't know what I was going to do after my accident. I had a really successful offshore career. And I was just recovering at home when I was watching the London Paralympics, literally at the bottom of my bed at home, where I was recuperating from my injuries. And I happened to come across Matt Stutzman, who's quite a famous American archer.
Oh, yeah, I've actually met him.
Yeah, he's an absolutely wonderful guy. He was born without any arms and he shoots with his feet. And I just thought to myself, I've never shot a bow before in my life. I thought, I wonder if I can do that one-handed. And that's where it all started for myself. I had to go in the deep end, so I had to buy all my own kit because there's no help out there for shoulder releases or anything like that.
Right.
So I went in literally at the deep end of the swimming pool and see if I could swim. I went from there and got to the GB team, I think in 2014. Went to my first European Championships in Switzerland. And then from there, I went to World Championships in Donaueschingen in Germany. And that's where I've won my very first mixed team gold medal in W1. Because of back then the W1 rules, if you got 3 damaged limbs, you were a W1. So went from there, winning the gold medal, opened up a place for my teammate also to take part in the Paralympics in Rio. In 2016, in the beginning of the year, I'd never ever beaten David Defrinsky. He was well ranked #1 in the world. I won silver against him in Donaueschingen in the World Championships. But then in the beginning in Czech Republic in his home country, it was in a pouring rain, and I actually beat him by a long way in the quarterfinals. I think I beat him by a good 7 points.
That's a lot.
That is a lot, yeah. And that's when I also won my very first individual gold medal as a W1. And I won the mixed team gold, as I always have done with Joe, my fellow teammate. Then I went on from there, went to Rio, and I did the double there as well. And it took me a really good long time to actually realise what I'd actually achieved. And back then, because of the way that power archery is, I didn't have that many sponsors neither. But thanks to my 2 Paralympic gold medals, I managed to get sponsorship from Matthews, from Victory Arrows, from Boning. And they're all equipment I've always used throughout my archery career. This stuff I've always had huge confidence in. Same with the True Ball release and XL sights. They're just, to me, they're just the best out there on the market. And I wouldn't shoot anything else. And back then I shot with Doinka stabilizers. Then we in 2017, I then swapped to W2. Because I knew after the World Championships in 2017, they were bringing in core strength into W1. And I knew that would mean that I was out of the category. So rather than jump ship before, after that time, I jumped ship beforehand. So in the beginning of 2017, I was well ranked number 95 in the world in W2. And within less than 3 months, I was well ranked number 5. And that's all thanks to all my sponsors as well at that particular point. Me and Phoebe won the World Championship mixed team bronze medal up against Italy. Then I started running into problems after I was reclassified. When I was reclassified, which was a huge shock to myself and the team, I was classified as standing. So I had to then learn how to shoot from a stool. And that's when I started really coming up against some obstacles to come up against. So in order to keep my head in the right place, I started up Paralympic 10-meter air rifle shooting, just so I could just keep them sticking and put them in the middle of the target, just to keep my confidence up. And it was during that time we then went to, towards the end of the year, went to a place called Bisham Abbey, to train for Tokyo, so we could practice in the heat and the humidity, so we knew what our bodies were going to go through in that environment. And because I was sitting on the perching stool at the time, my right arm wasn't supported. And what none of us appreciated was, if you got nerve damage to any part of your body would try and protect itself by swelling, by an edema to protect your damaged nerves. And unfortunately, I was wearing a short-sleeved compression top, and it trapped all the fluid in my lower arm, and my arm just dropped. I knew when it's too much, because it started pulling on my nerves in the right-hand side of my neck. And it took a good 7 to 8 days for my shoulder to recover. It was right down here. It was, you can see, it was completely deformed. And then I took the very hard decision to retire from archery. And that wasn't a decision I really took lightly. But I then chose to go down the rifle shooting route. And I was doing that up until COVID. I ran into a few issues with doing that, with wearing a shooting jacket and shooting in prone. I was then getting the opposite problem. I couldn't stop my shoulder from rising because my shoulder was permanently dislocated. So from there, I then started shooting pistol, left-handed pistol during the COVID for those two odd years. Got on to a pretty high standard, but then I started shooting competitions last year. And I just didn't like the competitions. They just weren't for me. They weren't as exciting as shooting an archery competition, for instance.
Yeah.
So from there, they then gave me a way to protect my right arm. So when I was shooting on the stool, I was shooting on a lot lower stool, and I was protecting my right arm. It couldn't drop. So I thought, hang on a minute, I wonder if I can use that in archery. So I then come back to my archery family. And I haven't looked back since, to be honest. I've been started up beginning of the last year, and I'm just beginning now to get up to full strength, up to where I need to be. Now it's just trying to get those scores in. So hopefully my goal is by the end of the year to be back on the Archery GB team. And I was quite grateful from all of my old sponsors, Clickers Archery here in the UK, because that's where I get my Matthew sponsorship through them, for the European sponsorship. And I'm now sponsored by Skylon, Mantis electronic training app for the bow. I did that because I knew how helpful SCAT was in shooting. So I could see that was going to be a prime mover to help me to accelerate a lot quicker in archery, which it has. But it's no silver bullet. You still got to have a good shooting form before it will help you. It's just there to show you little inaccuracies. And I've also been grateful to Larry at Boning. He's also taken me back, because Boning vanes, to me, they're just second to none. You haven't got to degrease them, and got to put primer on them. They're out of the pack, just stick their glue on it, stick it onto your arrow, and it'll just bond. And I use their Blazer Bond, and that fleshing ain't coming off. It'll pass right through any animal, and it'll still be attached. And to me, that's what you want. You want something that's going to stay on there, and they're just a super product. Like I've always done, I've stood behind all of my sponsors for all their products. It's something that's very, very important to me. I don't jump for money. To me, it's better to have a good quality product on your bow than not have a product on there at all. And my favourite arrow rest is the biter one, because it's zero movement and it's micro adjustable, and there's nothing to go wrong with it. I've never ever broken a biter blade. I have broken some of the other blades, but not biter. They're stainless steel and they're not getting fatigued in a hurry, and they won't go rusty. And then my sights, the the Axel sights, they've been absolutely tremendous. They're just super quality. After COVID, I couldn't buy any brand new ones. Started to buy second-hand ones because there's none out there on the market. And it's something that I've seen in shooting. COVID's had a huge impact in all the sports. Shooting especially was trying to get hold of bullets. And in archery, it's trying to get hold of the equipment. When I spoke to Benjamin Summers, because I know the Summers quite well, who own a True Ball and XL, Benjamin said to me, "John, we're 9 months behind in production. We haven't got anything to actually send out to you." And that particular time, I wanted to change my release aid, and I wanted the center line is what I wanted from True Ball. They've just been released, And Benjamin said, "I'm really sorry, John, but we've not produced any yet." So I looked at the their new back tension wrist strap, and that's what I started to shoot with. I got it to work indoors, but then when I tried to shoot it outdoors, it just wasn't working for me. But luckily, by that time, the centerline was in production, and I managed to buy two here in the UK, and I haven't looked back since. They're an absolute phenomenal finger release, wrist strap release. It's the best one to me that Trueball has ever produced, and it's just helped me leap from where I am now, hopefully back to Paralympic glory.
Well, that's quite a journey.
It certainly is. Yeah. It's taken me a lot of years to get to where I am, but I think for someone to get to the top of the game in under 3 years, and to come back with 2 Paralympic medals, I mean, even I couldn't believe that when I achieved it. And literally, when I was actually going through the knockouts, well, even before then on the practice field, because for the W1s, our finals went until the end, towards the end of the competition. So I spent a lot of time on the training range, and because I worked offshore before my accident, I knew that the wind changed with the tide, and where we were right on the coast, and that's precisely what happened. I watched the golf in the Olympics just to see what the wind was doing, so I got to get some idea what it's going to be like on the archery field when I actually went out there, and it was windy, very, very windy in the afternoon. So on the practice field, for the first 3 days of practice, I could have quite happily thrown my bows down range because my arrows were not landing in the gold at all. Then something just switched in my brain, and all of a sudden it wasn't a problem. I was just sticking them in the gold, and they were just going there. I get fellow people from other countries come and train me on my boss, and they saw my arrows were landing. They just left. They didn't like my arrows. So at that point, I already knew mentally that I hadn't beaten. And then when I was going through the knockouts, just like a magical merry-go-round, I just couldn't lose. It was just a surreal experience. But then, because after my gold medal, I was then pulled for drugs testing, I didn't actually get back to the village until 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was up, I think it was 11 o'clock the next day for the mixed team medal. And my counterpart, Jo Frith, she had her individual match in that morning. I think hers was the second match that morning, because hers was a gold medal match against Jess, another fellow British W1 archer at that particular time. And she suffers from MS. So you can imagine in that heat and humidity how much of an effect that had on her. It actually drained her energy. But me and her, and that night when I got back to the accommodation, I was actually coming down with a stinking cold. So we had a lot of things going against us. And we're up against the Korean team in the gold medal match. But we just managed to knuckle it down and win that gold medal. We didn't win it by very many points. We set a Paralympic record of, I think it was 137. Which at the moment still stands, but I have a funny feeling that record will fall at some point. But mine and Joe's world record that we hold, I don't think that's going to fall at any time soon. Because when we've got that in Donaueschingen, I think it was 143 or something like that. And there's not at the moment a W1 team in the world that's strong enough to get it, because me and Joe were very, very similarly suited in our strengths. So that was our biggest strength in the mixed team. So that was, to me, it was one of the biggest achievements I could ever wish to achieve. And then in the Queen's Honours List, I was then awarded with an MBE for my services to archery. And I actually got to meet my Commander-in-Chief, who has actually served in the armed forces as well back in my early years. I was in the Army for a while until I got medically discharged, but that's another story.
Another story. There's so many stories out there. We could talk for hours and hours, but
absolutely, and I could talk for hours with me offshore, and places have been all over the world, and I was working offshore, and without my military training, I wouldn't have been able to cope in some of the situations I found myself in, because some of the situations I were in were extremely scary. I was there by myself, and I didn't know anyone, and I had to trust the people that I'm working with. I could trust them. That was a huge ask of anybody to to go and do that. But I managed to get through it. I'm still here. I'm still in one piece, or just about, after my motorcycle accident. But yeah, it's been a huge life journey to get to where I am now.
Yeah, that's quite an inspiration to, archers that are just starting out. It's like, oh, I can't do it.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, you can if you want to. You
absolutely.
can't do it if you don't want to, but if you want to, archery can definitely help, a lot of situations in, just the fact that you're able to do it, with having not much use of an arm.
Yeah,
That's, that says a lot, about what you can do, if you put your mind to it. There's a way
yeah,
to solve the problem. And
absolutely. Yeah,
that's kind of the fun part of teaching archery is, I'm going to teach how I do it, how I learned it, how I modified it, works best for me. I'm going to
yeah,
teach that exact method. I'm going to tell you why I'm teaching that. And then I'm going to go in and, okay, now what do we have to change to make it work for you?
yeah, yeah,
That's the thing. I had
yeah,
one guy that come in, you mentioned the one lady had MS. Well, they come into
yeah,
my shop and he had MS. And normally you're going to teach a little bend in the arm. Well, he
yeah,
couldn't do that. So we
yeah,
had to because he had to lock that arm out in order
yeah,
to be able to hold the bow. So we made
yeah,
modifications and he was shooting really good with it. But we had to go non-standard because of a problem. And, you know,
yeah,
no two people have the same body type or the same
absolutely.
strength. Our arms might be longer, arms might be shorter. I know
Yeah,
guys taller than I, 3 or 4 inches taller than I am and have shorter arms than I do.
yeah,
So you can't go by one exact way of doing it. And I learned that, over many years of teaching martial arts as well.
yeah,
The technique is the same, but I have to teach it differently to different people.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
to accomplish the same goal. Well, in archery, what's our goal? To stick the arrow in the center of the target.
yeah. Or the center of
That's
the
the
animal
goal.
in the
Yeah,
kills.
yeah. And if you're hunting, then it would be, in that appropriate spot, for a good, clean, quick kill. And,
Yeah,
that's, that's the goal. And how do we get there? That
that's
is the challenge.
yeah. Just to me, it just comes down to practice and overcoming the differences in everybody's body type. There's one of the things I do love more about archery. It's open to it. It's accessible to anybody, any age, young or old. Anyone can shoot a bow, and to me, it's one of the best sports to get into, especially with some of the clubs here in the UK. They're like a small family, and they really do help look after you. And I know over in America, TJ, who's one of the coaches for the American para team, he's been doing phenomenal work over there for the para archers at all levels. He's actually launched I remember when I spoke to him over in Puerto Rico when in 2017, and he's actually just come out with a book that shows people all the different ways people can shoot a bow. It's the first para archery book of its type. And it's phenomenal that that he's out there doing that and helping people to get into the sport. He travels all over the States, I know he does, to try and help people with their archery. It's like he actually met, do you know how he met Matt Stutzman?
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'll give you that story. He was trying to TJ was traveling down the road, and he saw Matt sitting on the pavement, and he was drinking a can with his feet. And he pulled over and he said, "Hey man, have you thought about shooting a bow?" He went, "No." And that's how it started. That's how Matt got into archery. And just look where he is now.
Yeah.
He's him, Kevin Polish, and Carol Shelby are all going out as the compound team along with KJ and Kevin Polish Jr. And they're the compound team going out to the World Championships this year in Czech Republic. And I know Michael Luxlow extremely well. He's a recurve archer for the American Paras, and the American team are all very, very good friends of mine. They're the ones I always felt quite close to on the circuit. And and me and Michael have had some right good old laughs over the years. I wished him the best of luck for the World Championships this time. As if people don't know him, he's actually a sergeant in the American infantry, and he lost his foot in Afghanistan. I think he got blown off for an IED, and he's still serving. He's married. I think he's got a couple of kids, and he's an absolute lovely guy to know. And you know, if those guys can get out and do it, and anybody can get up and do it, you know, it's just we're trying to inspire others, to, you know, to show no matter what you go through, you can still achieve your goals. And I think it's just the biggest message you can give to anybody. Just doesn't matter how hard, you know, life is really. We can all get out there and do something. I wish that the world was a much more peaceful place than, you know, than what it is. If anybody could take a leaf out of the World Archery family, would be to see how countries can get along, because we do, and we all help it,
Right.
support each other. That's one of the things I've really missed since I actually retired from archery, was the international archery family. If we can do it, why can't the world just get along? You know, it's just put our differences to one side, because all of us come from different backgrounds, and we just get on. You know, I just really wished we could put that into a peacekeeping program for the rest of the world.
Well, you know how they do it. You make them all take up archery. Yeah, so you meet a lot of nice people in the archery world, and I know I've talked to guys, you know, all over the world, and it's the same feeling. You know, if you see somebody with a bow, you're automatically their friend. You know,
Yeah,
we might have to use Google Translates to talk to them, but
yeah,
you know, it's one of those things that, hey, you know, we all have something in common, and you know, it's that common connection. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'll have to tell you my story how I met Matt Stutzman. I'd watched his a couple of his videos when he was competing in the Olympics. I forget which one it was, and I think he said he'd come in second in that one. But he lives over in Iowa, and I'm in Nebraska, and Nebraska has their outdoor expo every year, and I volunteered for it this last year. Well, I go up there and I'm helping in the archery area, because a friend of mine I've known for many years is in charge of Nebraska. And then so I'm doing that, and one of the dinners, here's Matt.
Yeah.
So my wife and I sit down with him and his wife and kids, and we're chatting. You know, it's like, you know, I got to meet this guy that does everything with his feet.
Yeah, it does with his feet. It's like it gives someone the idea of Matt Stutzman's sense of humour. We're out in Donaueschingen, out in Germany, and these kids come over. And he went, "Excuse me, you want to go out to my case and get my gloves out for me, please?"
Get my gloves off. Yeah.
And that's just his sense of humour. He's just a lovely guy. And it's the same as Eric Hall. I mean, I've known Eric ever since I started archery. He was a doinker. His man actually designed all the doinkers at that particular time. He was the CEO of Doinker. And he came over with Matt over to the UK to come and train with us at Lilleshall with the GBT trains. And I've got several pictures of me and Matt shooting together on the AstroTurf Archery GB performance unit. And it's just phenomenal just to spend that amount of time with him. And Eric, I know he's not with Doinker anymore. He's now doing other things. I think he's over in LA now. But he's doing great things with his photography. I think is what he's doing now, doing like properties and things like that, taking photographs and for their property market over there. But then that's the other thing that COVID has also changed in archery. There's so many new manufacturers out there as well. And I was actually quite mind-boggled when I come back to archery about all the different equipment that's out and available out there now. I was very, very lucky with clickers because I could go in and try most of the new stabilizers out and see which ones I wanted to put on my bow, because Doinker range is starting to come back now. And to me, I think they've lost their footing that they once had in the stabilizer market. You've got True, but we've got Excel coming out with their new stabilizers. You've got Shrewd. Strude's what I use in my bow. I'm not sponsored by them, but they're light. They're that they're quite narrow, but they're a lot better than I had the Doinka Heroes when I was shooting for Doinka, and these are just as stiff as those, but also more forgiving. I don't feel any vibration in the bow whatsoever, and there's no there's only got a little bit of harmonic damping on that particular set of stabilizers. You've got a little rubber dampener which you can move up and down the stabilizer, and it's the internals is where they've actually put their dampening, which you can't see from the outside. They've got tapers towards each end of the stabilizer, so it helps to move the vibration along the stabilizer, and the shot just feels super dead. It's an absolute wonderful stabilizer to shoot with. I can really feel the shot extremely well with them, which is so important for feedback for a target archer.
Yeah, and that's one thing that after you shoot for a while, you can feel those differences.
Yeah,
I know when I had my store, beginners, they don't know the difference, because they can't tell. They don't know that because they haven't shot enough to know. And I always recommend it, if you can't tell the difference, buy the cheap one.
Yeah.
Why spend extra money if you can't tell the difference? Now, 6 months later, a year later, you're going to know the difference and want to get that better one. But why spend the money up front if you don't have to? And although some guys like, no, I just want really good stuff right to start with. Like, okay, that's what you want. You start one place and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just it's one of the biggest things that even I've helped some seriously disabled people to help them to shoot. I had one when I very first started doing archery, and he had severe muscular dystrophy, and he had very little movement in his arms, and he's very weak. And his mum just said to me, "Could you possibly make something to just allow him to shoot?" I mean, I'll never do it without doing it competitively. So me and my partner, we actually come up with a system that will work for him, and the smile on his face was just absolutely priceless. And his mum come up to us and said, "How much you want for that?" I said, "No, it's free." I said, "That smile is more enough penance for for what we've done for him." I said, "That's what we would just want to see, is everybody's smiling and enjoying themselves."
Yeah, it's nice when you can help somebody out, and I know, like I said, seeing that face, it's like the archer that's afraid, not an archer yet, but somebody goes in and it's like, "Hey, you want to try both?" "Oh no, I don't know. I don't think you set it up." And then you finally, the first shot goes off. It's like, "Ooh, that's fine. Can I do it again?" It's like that half hour or whatever was hour you spent with them, just convincing them to at least do one shot. Like,
absolutely.
oh, that all paid off. That was there. It's like, oh, this is fun. Can I do it again? And then do it again. And it's like, you do as long as you want.
Yeah. It's just seeing that smile on anybody's face is absolutely priceless. And it's again like with hunting. I mean, I prefer people that hunt with a bow than shoot with a gun, to be quite honest with you, because I think it's a far more clean kill with an animal. If you hit it in the right place, that animal's just going to drop.
Right.
Violent as well, so it doesn't put any fear of God into the animal. It's because everybody knows if you get a stressed animal, the meat doesn't taste very nice whatsoever.
Yeah, you get that little adrenaline going, and
absolutely, yeah. And I've got nothing against hunting whatsoever. I mean, as long as you do it to hunt, to eat the animal. I'm not really a trophy hunter. I don't agree with that so much. But as long as you eat the meat that you hunt for, then that's absolutely fine with me. I've actually had quite a few offers from some American friends to come over and shoot on their land to do a bit of hunting with a bow. But I don't have a track wheelchair to be able to get out there and do it.
Yeah, I know. I hunt for does, but because you can't eat the rack. But you know what? If a buck comes by with a nice rack, I'm still going to shoot it.
Yeah.
I'm not out there hunting just so I want something to hang on the wall. I'm hunting because I want the meat. And, I wouldn't turn down a nice looking buck. So do you do much hunting over there?
No, we're not allowed to really hunt over here in the UK. We wanted to bow hunt over in Europe, the nearest place is France. We can only do that on certain people's lands for wild boar mainly. Unfortunately, over here in Europe, it's the laws are a lot stricter. In the UK, you can buy a broadhead, but you can't put the arrow and the broadhead together, then it becomes illegal. So it becomes quite a minefield. So you can go abroad and hunt, but you can't actually do it here, where I live, unfortunately. But it's just one of our weird UK laws, unfortunately, for wildlife.
Yeah, that's kind of bad in places that you can't go out and do a lot of hunting, because a lot of us to hunt. It's like it's
Yeah.
fun to meet while we're out there. It's not as much about, well, it is about getting the meat, but
Yeah.
there's some of the best memories are ones that we didn't even take a shot.
Yeah.
That's just being out there and being in that environment. And it's the bonus for the trip is coming home with some meat.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Like the time when you're sitting in your tree stand and you're watching the frost form on your bow and the trees, and the sun comes over and starts shining off all the frost that's on the trees, and those
Yeah.
memories. Yeah, the deer walking by and you shooting deer. Yeah, sometimes those are really cool stories because of all the stuff to get to that point. But
yeah,
it's some of those other memories that stick by you pretty good.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I also like to put a big shout out as well to IBI Barrels in Canada, because between Ryan, Stacey, and Mike Norris, they built me a couple of rifles, and IBI sponsored me the barrels. And it's just the way that Ryan has their barrels built. I mean, to me, they're just the best barrels out there in the world. They shoot dead straight. There's a lot of people on the PRS series. They're all winning quite big trophies, especially over here in the UK. They're all shooting IBI barrels. And they all shoot for England. And Mike Norris is his ex special services, and he's one of the best gunsmiths to work with. He'll make a gun no matter the way you want it to be built. They give you all the advice that you need to make the right decisions of what you want in your rifle. And to me, that's the way to sell a rifle. It's not saying they want blah blah blah. He gives them the right advice so they can make the correct choices to make sure they get the rifle that's right for them.
Right.
And there's not people out there that do that. He says, I'm not here to make money. I'm here to make sure I build the right gun for you. And I think that's absolutely priceless.
Yeah, that's when you can get somebody that knows what they're doing and setting up equipment, whether it be the rifle, the bow, or whatever. It's one of those things that that's invaluable when you can have somebody set it up the way it works best for you and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the other things I like to say is a big hello to all of the service personnel, especially the Americans that are over in Syria at the moment, the Marine Corps. Just stay safe over there, because we're all thinking of you, trying to keep us all safe. And they put their lives in danger to keep us all safe. I've done my better service for my country, and I think it's just one thing that we should all be thankful for, is all the people that are willing to lay their lives on the line for their countries, to make sure that these terrorists can't survive at the end of the day, trying to ruin all our lives.
Yeah, they need to find something else to do, like pick up archery instead of trying to
yeah, absolutely,
do whatever it is they want to do. And I still haven't figured out what their main goal is, because I don't know. We just want to have fun and shoot our bows, shoot our guns, and go fishing. And
yeah, we just want to live our lives and have fun without being being able to watch our backs all the time. It's just when I was in the army, we had the Northern Ireland going on, and it was still going on in 2002 when I was serving. And I can remember the amount of times that we went on black alert, which none of the public were ever known of what was going on in the world back then. But when we went onto black alert, it was quite a high alert on that, on camp. All of us are out searching for IEDs, the stuff that didn't belong, because the IRA were quite fragrant back then. Back then, we weren't allowed to wear our DPMs off of base. We had to wear civilian clothing so that we weren't attacked.
yeah,
the whole thing back then, they made me feel quite paranoid. I have to always looking over my shoulder to make sure that no one was following me. Wherever I went in Civvy Street, it was just that was a horrible thing to get over as well. When I come out of services, I couldn't sit with my back to the room. I had to sit facing the room so I could see who was there. And it took me an extremely long time to get over that. But it's over the years that's slowly, faded into the background. But with these terrorists now, you just don't know what's around the next corner. None of us do. It's
No.
scary.
And I've always really hated to have my back to the door anyway. And, it's bad enough here in my office, my back's to the door, but I can kind of hear going in. So it's not quite the same, but I go somewhere. If I go to a restaurant, I'm sitting facing the door. I've done it for decades. And I feel, and even more important now, I think, you just sit there and so you can see what's going on. And
absolutely,
if something bad comes in or if a friend comes in, either way, I can see who's coming in. And sometimes you're out someplace and hey, a friend comes in, hey, how you doing? And so you just get to where especially nowadays, you have to look out and I can't carry my bow, so you have to carry something else.
Absolutely.
And nice out here in the States is, well, some of the states anyway, you can carry and don't have to worry about it. And
I suppose it's like Texas, isn't it? You can external carry in Texas.
Yeah, there's several states that you can, open carry. And some states you can't. And the disadvantage of open carrying is everybody can see it. And now some of these wackos get paranoid if they see one. Unlike here where I live in the little village I live in, it's not unusual for us to hear gunfire going off. Somebody out there target shooting. My thought, being a reloader, my thought is, can I have your brass? I don't care if they're shooting. I'm like, hey, don't leave your brass on the ground. I want it.
You see, when we were out in Rio, that was one of the scariest things. Was where the archery field was actually where the Rio Carnival finishes. And because we had all the police and the services around us, protecting us, up in the valleys, which are up in the hills, there was gunfire every single day. But we were there, fireworks going off, all sorts of intimidation going up there, in those hills. And we actually found a spent round down by down by our bosses, which is scary.
Yeah.
But it's just all the different places around the world. I worked out in Brazil as well. That's the very first time I come into contact with how cheap life is and the way people see life. It was scary. You see, just going down the road, down the highway, because when I first went out there, I was supposed to be meeting up with on a drill ship. But I knew it was a land-based job going on as well. And it's when the volcano went up in Iceland, and there wasn't a lot of flights at all coming out of Europe to the rest of the world because of the ash being thrown up into the atmosphere. So I got a phone call when I was on board this massive drill vessel. And John, can you please go and run this onshore job? And I knew it was going to be an absolute nightmare. And this is the scariest part where I've ever been in my life. So I had to get a water taxi back to shore, because in Rio, where all the ships are, they're all little islands. So I had to get a water taxi to get back to shore. Not many of them out there spoke English, and I was just sat on this garden, like on a park bench. Couldn't speak a word of Portuguese. Couldn't even ask for any help. And putting my life into the Frugo in situ office out in Rio. And they were arranging this guy to come out and collect us. And I didn't know him for Adam. And then we're going to do this job over in Campos in Brazil. But the only thing that I found safe about that was anything outside of Rio, you're safe because I don't see very many Europeans. So I didn't have to watch my back or anything like that. There wasn't, because as soon as I heard my voice, there wasn't any of that, going along. Because out in Rio, if you ever go out at night, never go out by yourself. It's an absolute no-no. Even cars do not stop off for traffic lights, even when the lights are red. They won't stop, because if they stop, they can get hijacked. And that's how dangerous Rio is. So yeah, so I was sat on this garden bench waiting for someone I didn't know to take me to do this job over in Compos. And doing that job, found a lot of problems because they let the client organise a vessel, which took away my power. The first vessel I had wasn't suitable at all, so I made them change it, which they did. But then during the deployment, the seas were just too rough to do any near shore deployments because we're working off a barge, and the sea state was just too much. And we had a lattice boom crane on board the barge, and that can't take an exorbitant of pressure. It just claps the boom straight away. So it was extremely dangerous. And it was during this that they decided to ballast the tanks on the barge to try and get it a bit more stable in the sea, to sit a little bit lower in the water. But it was just too rough, to my own opinion, of people going on board to even go and attempt it. And I had all the workers looking at me because I was trying to stop it, and I was powerless. I couldn't stop them from going on board, and I'm just so grateful that none of them lost their life or got injured that day. Because during this, during the construction of the pier, which is what they were doing, to get all the iron ore over to China, because this is for the Chinese, this particular project. On Google Maps, you can still see it in Compos, the big pier that they built. I think it goes out 1.5 miles out to sea. But 15 people lost their lives on that job. And that is one of the saddest things that I could ever really think of. And it was also my first place of actually seeing of how cheap someone's life really is to people, because their answer to it was, well, if you don't do it, someone else will. So you're off the job, and they just get someone else to come and do it, and they might get killed, they might not get killed, but they just didn't care. As long as the job got done, they just had no remorse for anybody who was doing the work for them, and that was scary.
Yeah, that would be. Well, they don't care if you live or die. They just do your job. And
yeah. And the other place I've been to in the world that I do not want to go back to. I mean, I love Rio. I'll definitely go back to Rio, but it's just understanding the safety aspects of it. As long as you keep to those rules, don't you never go out by yourself at night, you'll be absolutely fine. And don't get too drunk. So you're what's going on around you. But I did a job for Russia up in Murmansk, up in where the Russian naval fleet is based, and we're doing a oil pipeline and gas pipeline to come back to the shore on Murmansk. We're on the vessel. I can't remember the name of the ship, but she's very old. She was the first ship to have the Emir sub to go down to the Titanic. And on board this vessel, she's 120 meters long, so she weren't a small ship. She had two Mir sub hangars on the side of her, and all inside the vessel. I could see what the vessel would have been like back in the day. They had a lovely ballroom with a lovely big piano in there. It wasn't up to the standards it would have been back then. But yeah, we're doing this project. She had no DP. Then I was asked to do the hardest part of the job was doing a CPT just off the shoreline. So I had the bow of the vessel facing into rocks, and I had to dangle a 7-ton CPT off the back end of it, so she couldn't go backwards and she couldn't go forwards. And I managed to get it done. Well, that was tough. That was really tough. There was an awful lot of pressure, on my shoulders, but I got it done. It was also the very first time that I come into contact with how the Russians are and how their life was. So on the very first part of the project, I wasn't involved with, but as Frugro, we put bars, bags of crisps on board, just to keep all the crew happy. But the Russians are coming with carry bags and just packing it all up and taking it back to the cabins. It's unbelievable. So when I went out there, they learned from that, and they put a Dutch cook on board, and then he hid all the stores inside his cabin, to make sure that all of the international. Well, we were told if we were ever stopped by the Russians, we were scientists. And when we demobilized the ship, because we've completed the project right out into the Arctic Circle. So I've got a nice certificate somewhere that says I've been up to the Arctic Circle. It was minus 17 degrees. It's the coldest I've ever been in. The deck of the vessel sometimes got iced over, which was extremely dangerous. And we had a chute to launch our stuff down. So if you got down that, you're in the water.
Yeah.
That was scary. But the Russian captain couldn't understand what we were doing, because he said, you're going to work. Well, no, the sea state's too much. I said, I say whether we work or not you. I said, you're not in charge of me, mate. I'm in charge of you. You do as I say. And he didn't like that very much. But when we were demobilising the vessel, we demobilised in Murmansk. And we come back by land into Norway. Now, we went through 5 checkpoints, and every single checkpoint we had to take our bags off, go through their customs, wherever it was they were doing all their checks, 5 times. And as I was going back, all you saw there was Russian army bases. That's it. And I went through one town, and the trees were black because they had coal-fired power stations. So it was all, the whole land was black. And I was like thinking, well, now I can see why the Russian people are so blooming miserable from their regime. It was just scary, and I do not want to go back. That's the worst place I think I've been in the world that I really do not want to go back to.
Yeah, that don't sound like a place that you want to visit and kind of feel bad for the people that have to live there. You know,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's a first really understanding of how disruptive their dictatorship is over there, and how much they actually control what the civilians see. It's scary, especially when we've got Putin doing what he's doing at the moment as well. I just wish we could get rid of him. There you go.
Yeah. Well, we can only do so much, right?
Absolutely, we're doing well. I think the world's doing the best they can with the situation over in Ukraine. Just a very, very sad state of affairs. And I think if I hadn't really had my accident, I think I would have been over there fighting on behalf of the Ukrainian forces. Because an aggressor like that just taking over someone's country is just isn't on.
Right. Yeah, that's, it's not good to have those, but sometimes you've got to.
Yeah.
Just one of those things that got to do what you got to do.
Absolutely, yeah. But I know we're all doing our best to help support Ukraine. It's just not a very nice situation for them to be in completely. Neither was actually realising until this all happened of how much the world depended on Ukraine for its food stores, for its grain, for its sunflower seeds. They helped to feed the famine in Africa, and that's all gone. Scary.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess I didn't realize how much comes out of Ukraine, because I never really paid much attention to where it comes to.
Yeah.
I try and grow a lot of my own crops anyway, and so I try not to buy as much as I can from the store, but
But that's one of the reasons why the Ukrainian flag is blue and yellow. It's yellow for the sunflowers and blue for the sky.
Oh, I guess I didn't realize that. Learn something new every day.
As I always say, every day is a school day. We're never out of our lives, and never stop learning. And we've all got so much knowledge to pass on to each other as well.
Yeah, and that's what I like about this, is I learned something from everybody that I have on the podcast, and hopefully they learn something from me. And if nothing else, hey, we get to meet each other and chat for a while, and get to know more friends around the world.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's how the world revolves at the end of the day. A small bit of knowledge is very can be quite powerful in the right hands.
Yeah. And now, with the internet, it's like, hey, I'm in the middle of United States in Nebraska, and you're over in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
And we're talking just like we're sitting down together.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the internet is a wonderful thing, but it's also quite a dangerous thing with all this CI technology that's coming out.
Oh,
that, clone you electronically is quite frightening, really.
Well, and ever since ChatGPT is kind of the real popular one. It hadn't been out for a year, and I got hooked up to it, when it first come out, and I've used it for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
It's like you can use it to write posts, you can use it to write descriptions. I actually just to play with it, I had it write me an ebook on
yeah,
Archery. Then I
yeah,
had it create me a webinar
yeah,
with the script for it, then create me a week's worth of posts and
yeah,
half a dozen different social media. And it like, cool. It took me like an hour and a
yeah,
half,
yeah,
and I have a 70-page ebook out of it.
yeah, yeah,
I'm not gonna put it out until I read it over to make sure it makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
Sometimes they kind of do weird stuff, and it's like, no,
yeah.
that's not true.
Yeah, I must admit, spelling is one of my difficulties because I'm actually dyslexic. I actually discovered I'm also now admittedly on the spectrum of being autistic as well. I'm also slightly over naturally natural in strength, and they just give me my superpowers for doing aiming sports because I'm able to focus on on the little things.
Yeah.
That leads me into one of the other things I found quite interesting with having the Mantis X8 archery app on my on my phone and having a bit on my bow for the electronics, is that for any coaches out there that coach people over, can coach from a distance because they can give their student a set of instructions what they want them to do, and then with Mantis the coach can actually see of how they're actually shooting from a distance.
Yeah.
Which I think is a phenomenal tool, and it's not really being used that much at the moment. It's something I'm trying to push here out in the UK. I've been quite lucky with Mantis. They actually sent me out a spare device so I can demonstrate it to people of how it works. And for me, from using SCAT when I was doing rifle shooting and pistol, didn't really work so much with pistol. It worked very well with a rifle, so you can see how much trigger torque you're getting, because with a rifle, that's the thing that you get quite a lot of, is trigger torque. So your shots go right or left depending on how well you got that trigger centralized in your finger. It's critical if you want to hit a high score, especially with the rules that they use in ISSF. But with that of knowing how that all works for me with the Mantis, it's been a very, very, very useful bit of kit. But people think it's a golden bullet, and I think it's just going to make them a better archer. No, it'll make you a better archer if you've got a good shooting form and you know what you're doing and you're both set up right. Yeah, then you can use it. Yeah, then it can show you all your little miscalculations, or if you're got the wrong hand position or anything like that. It tells you if you've been talking. If you're going into the diagnostics, it gives you a circle, and where it projects out is like a triangle that comes out. There's like an inverted triangle. So it comes out of the side, the worse it gets. And you just press on that segment where it comes out, and it tells you your potential things that you're doing wrong and then to try and correct it. So in that respect, I think it is a tremendous training tool out there for archery, for both hunting or target.
Yeah, I've looked at the Mantis stuff. At first I had to see this for the handguns. And
Yeah.
I discovered, they got one for archery too. And it's like, oh no, that would be kind of a fun tool to have and play with. And I can see it be, kind of valuable once you get to that upper level where a fine changes makes a big difference. Beginner probably wouldn't help a beginner out at all because they need to get the form.
Exactly.
Once you get your form down, and I was like, okay, I need to take it one step higher, but I'm struggling getting there.
Yeah.
Hook something on like that so you can actually see what's going on.
Yeah. I think when I first started it, I think I was shooting 91 stability. My average now is 96, which is what they class as expert. And to try and get from there to 98, which is what they class as pro, is very hard. even for
it's only 2%.
Yeah. But it's it is hard. But that's where you've got to try and push yourself to be the best that you can possibly can be. And that's what I like about that particular app. It just helps you to focus. Where you need to be focused on your shooting form. And most of the time, that I always used to get told before any of these electronics things was out, how can I get my group smaller? shoot more arrows. And that is absolutely true. The more you shoot, the more your muscles get used to the different muscle groups that you're using, because you're using all your small back muscles. And for anyone out there who doesn't know anything about archery, I shoot 57 pounds, which is in kilos is 25.7 kilos. And if you times that by 72 arrows, it's over 2 tons of weight I'm shifting.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal figure to, for anyone to actually comprehend and think of. But yeah, that's what every archer goes through. If you're shooting 60 pound or 90 pound, you'll be shifting even more than that.
Yeah. And my hunting bow is set for 70 pounds, and, shoot 100 arrows at 70 pounds. That's a lot of weight you got to move.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a phenomenal lot of weight. But also using those small muscles, it takes your muscles a long time to get used to that as well, doesn't it?
Right. I know that my first bow was set at 52 pounds.
Yeah.
And I'm drawing it back and I'm shooting. And I wanted to, it'd go up to 70. It's actually, I think 55 to 70, but as at 52 is where it was at. And I shot for a long time trying to get up there. And I finally got up like 59, and I just hard to get over that 60, and finally got to 62, and then it went up to 70. It was a struggle. And I killed my first deer with that bow at 52 pounds. 2117 aluminum arrow, full length. I didn't even cut them down. So it was like, I don't know, whether 32, 34 inches long, I forget now. And I think 145 grain Muzzy broadhead on it. And I was 20 feet up the tree, and the deer was 40 yards away, because I get that high up to get over the brushes to get to the trail. And when I shot, that deer turned around, and I think almost the whole arrow except the fletching had went through that deer. At 52 pounds, but it was a heavy arrow.
That's sort of the thing when you're hunting. You want a high kinetic energy arrow, so it's important to do your velocities to make sure that your arrow is optimal for your bow poundage and your draw length. Because when you're trying to, especially when you're trying to kill an animal or something like that, you want it to be as clean as possible. So you want the arrow to be perfectly tuned, to make sure that it's got the correct kinetic energy in it, or the maximum you can put inside the arrow, so you can have a nice clean kill at the end of the day.
Yeah, and there's charts you can go out and figure what your kinetic energy is. And I'm drawing a blank now how much kinetic energy you need to kill a deer. I know my bow, the one when I was checking it, it's light enough kinetic energy. It I don't know, 70, 80 yards and it still had more than needed. It's just hitting them. And of course, now as I get older, I can't see them that far. Not with my right eye. I can't see them. That's all. It's like, if I can't make out the target, I can't shoot it.
I think also, for any archer out there wants any advice, if they go onto YouTube and look up John Dudley, I think his videos are exceptional. And set their bows up. I actually met him in Telford in 2014, because that's when Neems wasn't on. So they held it in Telford here in England. And it's also the first time I've ever met Levi Morgan as well, because that was his first trip outside the United States. He actually come over to the UK. That's the first time he's been outside of America.
Oh. That's cool.
And I've got a few photographs with him taken at Telford. But yeah, that was my very first experience of what an international shoot would be like, was at Telford, with all the big archery names from all over the world. Rhea Wild, Dave Cousins, they're all there participating for their manufacturers over in Telford.
Yeah, there's some guys out there that have some really good videos, and others are not very good.
Yeah.
There's a few people that I go look at, not to plug other sites, but Knock on Archery, he's got some good stuff.
John.
That site's a really good one, and that's John Dudley's. And then for the recurve shooter, Kaminsky. I just drew a blank on what his first name was, but Jake Kaminsky. if I want to know something about recurve, this, I've started out shooting recurve.
Yeah.
I can teach you basic stuff on recurve, but I go out and look at his site. It's like, first I was like, string walker. The heck is a string walker? you know, I kind of like the TV show Skinwalker. I was like, okay, is that what it is? So I listened to that, and then I've interviewed some archers on here that do that, and it's like, oh, okay, now I know what you're doing. And when I shoot my recurve, it's 100% instinctive. I don't look at the sights. I don't have sights on it. I don't look
Yeah.
at the arrow. I don't gap shoot. I just look at the target where I want the arrow to go and point.
Yeah.
And that's just the way I've done it. And I don't shoot compounds that way. If I compound in my hand, I can't shoot it instinctively. It's just one of those metal blocks that, like, different weapon, I'm going to shoot it differently. I just
Yeah.
pick up a handgun, I'm going to shoot it differently. If
Yeah.
it's auto, I'm going to shoot it one way. If it's a revolver, I'm going to shoot it a different way. I
Yeah.
pick
Yeah.
up a shotgun, I'm going to shoot it differently.
Yeah.
Pick up a rifle, I'm going to shoot it differently.
Yeah.
Every weapon is different. You shoot a crossbow, it's kind of cross between rifle. You shoot kind of like a rifle.
Yeah.
But you have to think about archery when you're doing it, because you don't have the range.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Plus, the thing was, what I found with doing archery and doing rifle shooting and pistol shooting, I found compound archery that it's very more similar to rifle shooting than it is to pistol shooting. Because you got a circle, which is all you have in a target rifle. You don't have a crosshair, you don't have a center dot. It's just circles. So got a round target you're shooting at, and you've got an aperture that goes around that. So just rings on rings. Is that the same as a compound bow in archery? That's what we shoot with. And plus, you get a lot more stability from a bow than you do from a pistol, because you've got that extra power coming back towards you.
Right.
So you get more stability into your bow shoulder. So I think a bow is far more accurate than a handgun.
Yeah, it definitely can. I can shoot a little more accurately with my bow at 20 yards than I can with a pistol.
Yeah.
But I don't shoot it as much. So
yeah,
if I shot more, I'd definitely be better. But when the COVID crap come in, ammo was like impossible to get.
Yeah.
I was stingy. I didn't want to shoot because there was no more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because that's the other thing that I found with pistol shooting, especially target pistol, for people who don't know, is that they have iron sights on them, which are black, and your target's black. So you're actually aiming below the target, because otherwise you can't see your sights.
Yeah.
And that's when I begin to learn quite quickly. It's more about muscle memory than it was actually about aiming. So you're just trying to make sure that your muscles know that once you get to that position that the shot's released. And I found that one of the hardest things to get through my brain, to be quite honest. Whereas if you had fiber optics like you would have on a handgun, for instance, you just aim at center mass. It doesn't matter whether it's a black target, white target, or anything like that. You can see where you're aiming. You're aiming at mass rather than below the target. Which I did find that a really, really hard thing to get through my head. It was that was a struggle.
Yeah, they're all a little bit different aiming techniques. And I know when I shot in high school, we had the peep sight on the front, and then I had a round disc that was actually a clear disc up front.
Yeah.
Some of them have the little pin with a little metal ring on it that you'd line up, and mine was just a clear disc, so you could see a little faint black line around it when you see the edge of the plastic, and it's just perfectly lined up. You could have just a little gap around the target to shoot, and like you said, you get circles and circles and circles. You just have circle, center of the front circle, because your eye is through the rear circle. And peep sights, I don't know if I can see through peep sights anymore now, but I could when I was in high school. And many years after.
But funny enough, that brings me on to the other thing that's happened to me, because when I was originally doing archery, I didn't wear glasses. I had perfect 20/20 vision from out of both eyes. But then when I was coming into doing rifle shooting, I began to realise that I did need. I was short-sighted, so I needed to start wearing glasses. So then when I started doing archery, I found it hard because I was trying to do things up close. I didn't have varifocals, and I couldn't see to do it. So I thought I'll get a pair of varifocals and I have them so that the tint on my glasses would change with the sunlight, so they're reactive. But then what I didn't realise is when I was shooting, because these glasses haven't got metal arms, they're plastic, so I can't make them grip my head. But then as I was shooting, they would drift down my nose.
Yeah.
And then it changes my focal point. And
Yeah.
moving my so that's when I've now gone back to single visions, so that doesn't happen. But something that I wouldn't have thought about at all back then. But wearing glasses is another thing to overcome if you need to wear glasses to shoot with. You need to make sure that the bridge doesn't affect your line of sight, because if it does, you won't be able to see through the peep.
Yeah, and you're always looking up through the upper corner of the glasses. Now, these are the ones I have set up so I can see on the computer. And then I have reading part of the bifocals, but I actually have another pair that I use for normal seeing. But in order to make you clear, I have to go like this. So it's blurry, but normal distance, I have them big enough I can actually see through the corner, because when you're down, with the peep, you're down a bit, with the rifle, you're down, looking through that part of it. And, I may have to, figure out exactly what prescription I would need. And then just have a pair of shooting glasses where the bifocal part or whatever is up in the corner. Don't put them down here, but I want one right up here. This is my archery spot. I need that spot in my glasses.
Because in shooting, you see, they wear shooting glasses, and the way that works, so they've got a single lens, and then to make sure that lens is in the right orientation to your eye, they have a bit of plastic that clips onto it, and it's got a little hole in the middle, and a series of little holes around the base of it, and it sticks out about that far from the glasses. So when you put it on, you can only see the target if the magnifier lens is in the correct orientation to your eye to the target. That's how they do it in rifle shooting and pistol shooting, and that works quite well. But I don't think I wouldn't wear them for doing archery. They look a bit strange on the archery field wearing a pair of those.
Yeah, well, hey, if it works, right?
I might experiment at some time, because I have still got my shooting glasses. About anything I think I've got left from my shooting days, shooting a rifle and shooting a pistol. But I might give it a go, so see what it's like with a line out with a peep sight.
Yeah, kind of like the jewelers that have those things they stick on their glasses, and then they just load down whatever magnification they want. It's like, okay, oh no, that don't work. Well, okay, that's the one I want for this one.
Just interesting now, how all the different sports, do things differently as well, to achieve the same outcome as well.
Yeah, like for a shotgun, I on my son when he was shooting trap, he was shooting both eyes open, and for some reason the left eye was picking up. He's right dominant, but the left eye was picking up some of the pins, and he was having a little trouble with it. So I got one of those little brackets that basically blocks the one side of the front bead, so you can't see it with your left eye or right eye, whatever your non-dominant eye is. And I had the same problem with mine when I was shooting. I went out, I shot this deer, and I know that pin was exactly where I wanted it. Nice clear pin. Well, I hit it in the back hip, hit the artery in the back hip. Like, what? I know that pin was not back that far. Because it wasn't like it was walking or anything. And so I couldn't figure out what's going on. And so finally I figured it out when I went down to the range. It's like, I got to figure what's going on. Go down to the range. I'm shooting. I close my left eye like I normally do when I'm target shooting. Both eyes open. So I nailed it. Right was supposed to, okay, I don't know what's going on. Open up both eyes. I missed by about 3 feet. The distance between the kill zone and the back.
Jesus.
So I see 2 sets of pins. I see double. I going to that now, but so I have prisms in there, and what happened is I see two sets of pins. My right eye has always been the clear eye, the sharp pins. The left eye has always been a little fuzzier. Well, over the
Yeah.
years, my mind started ignoring. I don't even notice they're there. If I look for them, I can see them. Don't
Yeah.
even notice they were there. Well, guess what? When you start getting older, what starts forming on your eyes?
Cataracts.
So the cataracts, right? So now
Yeah.
my right eye is not my clear eye. My left eye is my clear eye. So
Yeah.
what does my mind pick up? The left eye pin. The pin
Yeah.
left eye, which means
Yeah.
about 3 feet. You know?
Yeah. You see, when I shoot in competitions, so this is my cap here, and I actually made an eye blinder. So rather than closing my left eye, I use an eye blinder to shoot with. Is that the same sort of thing as you were doing with a shotgun? And I find that works for me, but it's trying to also find out what works for, for everybody else. I find with that eye blinder, I can see the target extremely clearly. Because if I close my left eye, I find that the light coming through to my right eye then makes the target look a lot smaller. But
Right.
if I have that light coming in the same sort of strength, but I've got a blinder so it's blocked to the target, I can then see the target extremely clearly. So that's how that's how I prefer to shoot.
Yeah. Well, and what I discovered, after that, I was going up in the tree stand and I'm blinking my left eye to force me to pick up the right pin.
Yeah.
And I had a hooded sweatshirt on, and I always wear a baseball cap when I hunt because it keeps it off from falling down on my eyes and
Yeah. Yeah.
sun out of my eyes. And normally you'll see me with a baseball cap on. I didn't today because I didn't feel like putting it on. The light's not in my eyes, so I don't have to worry about it. So what I found is with the hooded sweatshirt on, the hood stays here. And as I turn
Yeah.
my head,
Yeah.
the hood blocks my left eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as long as I'm hunting with a hooded sweatshirt on, I don't have to worry about it. That's the same thing you did there. The other option would be to put something like that on my hat so that it
Yeah.
blocks it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to get something like that if I'm going out doing stuff when I can't wear a sweatshirt, like 3D shoots in the summertime. I'm not putting a hooded sweatshirt on. He'd get burned up here.
And get burnt here
80,
too.
90 degrees out.
I had my last Paris selection shoot on Wednesday, and it was very, very hot here in the UK. The sun was coming in and out, and I forgot to put my sun cream on, and I got burnt.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
Now that certainly do it. But also, well, nobody asked me, if I wanted permission, but I'm actually for Paris for 2024. I'm actually the archery poster boy for Compound.
Oh, cool.
That was quite a nice surprise. I wasn't even aware that they were going to be doing that, because obviously the IPC would have the permissions for them to use my image. So that's, I'm quite proud to be the poster boy for a Compound for Paris. So anybody that goes on there on their website, that's me shooting a Compound.
That's pretty cool. So what's the website that's on?
If you just put in Paris Archery 2024, you see there's two pictures. There's one of a recurve archer, and then there's another one shooting a Compound, and that's me. Make sure that comes on. I'll go on myself.
Okay, let's see. I don't know if I got to the right spot here, but I was going to see if I can look it up. And so it's Paris2024.org.
No, what you need to put into the Google search is Paris Paralympics.
Let me do this again here. Okay, Paris, what?
Paralympics. And then archery, and then just put in 2024. And I'll come back up straight on top of the first page that comes up.
If I can find it.
So it'll be a little picture like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, how the things get kind of goofy. Paris Olympic Games 2024.
Yeah, Paris Paralympics archery 2024. It's important to put in the archery bit because otherwise it won't bring up the archery
Oh,
sport.
yeah.
And that was actually taken out in Rio when I won my 2 Paralympic gold medals. Even though back then I was shooting a PSE, but it was what I call class as a Matthews PSE hybrid, because actually had managed to fangle a Matthews focus grip onto the back of the grip of the PSE.
Oh, my machine's not very fast. It's taking a while. Okay, I think I found it now. That's the picture then?
That's the picture, yeah. Well, that was taken out in Rio when I won I think that was from my individual. And I was up against David Javrinsky, because also when I won my individual medal, that also made me world ranked #1 as well. I took David's top spot from him completely.
Yeah, is that a PSC you're shooting?
Yeah, it's PSC, yeah, but it's got a Matthews focus grip on it.
Hey, you gotta go what fits your hand the best, right?
Absolutely. But as after that, I then was sponsored with Matthews, and I haven't turned back their TRX competition bows. I think I was shooting a TRX back then it's in 2017 when I got to world ranked #5, and I'm now shooting their TRX 38 G2 for 50 meters and the TRX 40 for indoors. The new cam that's on the new TRXs, they're extremely fast. So all I'm shooting is 57 pounds with 70% let off. So I'm holding about 17 to 18 pounds when I'm at full draw. That just gives me enough power coming back towards me, so I can tell if I'm backing off, pushing it to the target. It comes, bites me. But that's just the way I like to shoot. But it's a super stable target bow. To me, it's the best Matthews bow that Matthews have ever produced for target archery.
Yeah, we back to here, and here is a couple other pictures.
Yeah, my good buddy Matt Stutzman. Yeah, it's Andre Shelby. He's going out to the World Championships for America this year in Czech. And there's KJ, Kevin Polish Jr., and Matt are the three compounders. That's my friend Michael Luxlow. He's a sergeant in the infantry, and he's still serving. I've known him for an awful lot of years, and I actually reached out to him last week, funny enough, and I had some really good conversations with him. He's in a good place for Germany to hopefully try and get a place for America to get to the Paralympics. And I think if you scroll down, I think you've got Jeff Fabry as well. I saw him briefly.
Really.
It's on one of the other pages.
Yeah.
But for those who don't know who Jeff Fabry is, he won. That's him there with shooting with a mouth tab. If you pull your cursor across to,
Right here.
yeah, that's Jeff. So for him, out in the London Games, he won Paralympic gold out in London. But if you watch his session for the gold medal match in London, you actually see that I think he drops his bow on the second arrow and it explodes on the floor.
Oh,
because he forgot to put on his wrist sling.
oh yeah. I think it looks
And
like it's got a sling here and don't have it on.
Yeah. And his spare bow was on the practice range.
Oh no.
Because back then they used to shoot in sets. The same way as recurve is now for the Olympics. But back then, compound and W1 was shot as sets. So the American head coach ran all the way back to the practice range to get his spare bow. And because it was sets, he was able to come back and win. If it would have been now, it would have lost. It would have been an absolute no-go. Because we shoot with a cumulative score and not in sets. So because it's shot in sets, that saved Jeff, and he managed to win gold medal in London.
That's pretty cool. It can do that.
Yeah,
I know if I don't have my sling on, I'm going to drop the bow.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing what some of the archers can do. When you have a little limitation. And
Matt's a phenomenal archer to watch him shoot with the way he picks up he loads his own arrows. And watch him do it with his feet is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because he made his own harness to allow him to shoot. It works for him. But he doesn't struggle shooting the full 60 pounds. He's drawing with the biggest muscles in the body at the end of the day.
Yeah. The legs are a pretty strong muscle.
Absolutely, yeah. But he's not the only no-armed archer to shoot anymore. I think there's 3 of them in the world now. So he's not the
when
only
I
one.
see him, he had no arms. The one he was shooting against had one arm. Still,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how they're doing it, but
that was Kevin Evans. I would have thought he's now, as he shot for Canada, he's now retired. I've also knew him fairly well as well. But I think I'm actually the most successful one-armed archer in the world. I won gold, Paralympic golds, I won world golds, and I won a W1 bronze medal. And also still hold one heck of a lot of world records as well that will never be beaten. So yeah, I've had my time. Now I'm trying to get back to the top of my game. My main goal is to get to Los Angeles, get to the games there in America.
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I can imagine with the American home crowd. It's one of the other things. I come over with the American Independence Fund over to America, and we're taken in to watch the Lieutenant Dan Band. And we're walking in. The crowds are all up in the stands inside the stadium, and I had tears running down my face when they're all saying thank you very much for your service. It was just an absolutely surreal circumstance to be put in with all that emotion around you. Unfortunately, we don't get that so much over here in the UK. Things are changing, but they're not as changed as much as happened since the Vietnam War over in America. It all seems to change after that. For the way the American people supported their armed forces, I think is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, it wasn't that way when the guys were coming back from Vietnam. It was they were thought of basically scumbags, baby killers, and everything else, and and then especially those that decide, oh, I'm going to go to Canada so I don't have to go over to Vietnam, and then they protest the war, and and then the guys are going over doing what they have to and going through that hell over there, and
it's just nice to see how the American people now get behind the American forces, because they're out there putting their lives on the line for them on a daily basis to make sure that we've all got our lives the way we live them. Without them, we wouldn't have any of that. So yeah, for everyone that served, you know, thank you.
Yeah, it's completely different now than it was then, and you know, for the better, of course. You know, when you have do show respect for the guys that are willing to put their life on the line, you know, for
Yeah,
the country, it is definitely, you know, something that, you know, should be done, and there should be more done for them.
yeah,
So there are a lot of companies out here now that will give military discounts. You know, as you go in and say, you got a military discount, show them your ID, and
yeah,
you know, either active duty, retired, or even a veteran like me. Then I go to the VA, so I have my VA card.
yeah, yeah,
You know, so that proves I was, and of course now my driver's license, it says veteran on it, so I can probably show
yeah.
that. It says I'm a veteran. And you can't get that on there without a DD 214, which is, for those that don't know, that's the papers we get when we get discharged.
Right.
Gives us, you know, when we went in, how long we served, what our AFSE was, and all
Yeah,
that. Especially proves that we were a veteran. We
yeah,
served in
yeah,
the military.
yeah. For us British soldiers, we get a red folder that says that we've, you know, had an honourable service. If you get a green one, you've had a dishonourable service.
Yeah, you don't want one of those.
No, you don't. No,
No.
no, no.
Well, here in the States, a dishonorable discharge prohibits you from having firearms.
All right.
Yeah, because it's basically classed as a felony.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
How would you get a dishonorable discharge out of the military unless you did something to be court-martialed for,
yeah, yeah.
and
Well,
probably serve some time?
well, most of the time in the British Army, it's for people who are taking drugs. And then they fail their drugs test, they then get a green folder because they've had a dishonourable discharge. That's the quickest way of getting out the armed forces in the UK.
And some are going to figure, well, better to have that and be alive than serve and be dead. Like, yeah, okay, coward. You want to
Yeah,
get that
absolutely.
way out? You got to do
Yeah,
the country what you got to do.
yeah. That's one of the other things I was quite grateful for when I won my 2 gold medals from Rio. Is I had the opportunity. Well, I was taken to Buckingham Palace to go and meet my commander in chief, the Queen, well, the late Queen now. I met her and Prince Philip. They both shook my hand, and they're an extremely nice people. I had quite a long conversation, short conversation with them really, but it was just an absolute honour to actually get to meet my own commander in chief.
Yeah, that would be quite an honor to meet the Queen.
Yeah, because not a lot of people do that at the end of the day.
No, not many even going to get past the guards.
No, no. And then when I went back to get my MBE, I was presented by Princess Anne. And on the way out, I actually had my photo. Well, when I was actually in the palace, actually after I got my MBE, because I know quite a lot of the injured, British personnel, especially Harry. He's an ex-Gurkha. He's the one that's just done Everest. I know him extremely well. A big shout out to him, and because he had to change the law over there in order for him to be able to climb Mount Everest. He had an awful lot of obstacles to climb, but he did it, and he got to the top.
That's an accomplishment right there for anybody.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But it's him changing the law over there was the biggest obstacle that he had to overcome. Because up until that point, no disabled person was allowed to climb up Mount Everest. So he got that changed. He was a W amputee. He had special spike legs that he used to get up Mount Everest. Or he's a little bit slower climbing than an able-bodied person, but he did it. He conquered it, and he's set his challenge, and he's conquered it. And Harry's a phenomenal person over here. There's an awful lot of inspirational talks over here in the UK for the British forces. But when I was coming out of Buckingham Palace, they had the Gurkhas on guard inside the palace, and they're not really allowed to speak to anybody. So I just happened to walk past and went, I actually know a colleague of yours, Harry. I went, really? And then they started talking to me. But I had to look behind them to make sure that none of the officers were there spotting them and seeing that they were actually talking to me.
Gonna get him in trouble now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I could have gone into a lot of trouble. Well, but beast him more than anything, I would expect they would have got from that. or a fine. But then I was leaving the palace. One of the guards that was on sentry duty, I went, "Do you mind if I have my picture taken with you?" He went, "It couldn't actually move." He went, "No." So, and then the police then tried to arrest me for taking a photograph of me with this guard outside Buckingham Palace.
Yeah, it's amazing, those guys, the palace guards, the discipline they have, and the honor they're showing, and it's like the soldiers around an unknown tomb.
Yeah,
The dedication those guys have, and rain or shine or anything, they're there doing their job. And
yeah. It's like I had the privilege when I was over in America, went to Paris Island, actually saw the Marines training in their phase. I think it's their phase 1. Do it slightly differently to us Brits. All of our basic discipline comes off of the parade square. We call it square bashing. And I've had this happen to me when I was on parade. I had a loose thread on my shirt and I was beasted. I was pulled off to one side and I was beasted around the parade square. That was painful. So you don't do it again.
You only do it once.
Absolutely, yeah. But I know the Americans over there, you do it slightly differently, but the outcomes is exactly the same. It's no different.
Right.
If you screw up, you're going to get beasted for it, whether you like it or not. So you don't make that mistake again. And I also had it. We're out on the tab, and I forgot to leave my locker keys inside the ammunition box inside the gym, and they're in my pocket. So we were out coming back, and then they made us do push-ups, and then unfortunately my locker keys fell out on the floor, and then they beasted the whole team because of my mistake. Yeah. I hold my hands up. That's it's just one of those. You have to swallow it. Your team's not very happy with you neither. So when you get back to the barracks, then you get all the shit from them as well to go with it. But you do not make that mistake again after that, because you learn from your mistake.
Right.
And then the team then learns from it to make sure that you have done that. Make sure you have left your locker keys inside the box, because they get punished for it too. It's not just me as an individual. Them as us as a team, we all get punished for it.
It makes you perform as one unit instead of a bunch of individuals. And
and you're there watching each other's backs. That's part of being a unit. Is they're all fighting together. So you've got to trust one another. If you can't trust one another, how are you supposed to fight at the end of the day?
Yeah, you got to know that the person that's beside you has got your back, and happens to you or happens to them, you're there to help them. And
and that's what the civilians don't understand. What joins, I really wish. I've got a badge on my phone that says Brothers in Arms, which is us and the Americans, and I wish it said Brothers and Sisters in Arms, which is what it should now say, to be publicly correct. Because at the end of the day, there's an awful lot of high-ranking ladies out there now. Even in the Marine Corps, staff sergeants, drill sergeants, and in the UK, I had the privilege of going back to my own unit, back to the REME, for their sports day, giving out the awards. And one of the REME officers has actually completed the commando course. For those who don't know what that means, that they've done the Royal Marines combat course. Because part of the REME, we can actually wear the red beret for the parachute regiment, and we can also wear the green beret for the Green Berets for the Royal Marines. We go through exactly the same training as them. And one of our female officers has actually completed the whole course. I think she's one of the first ladies to do it here in the UK, and she fights on the front line.
Yeah, as long as they don't change the standards, so that it's there. And here, of course, you want to run it, you run it. If you don't make it, you don't make it. And
it's like watching G.I. Jane.
Yeah,
I think that was phenomenal films to watch. And she had to work harder than the men to get there, but she got there. She had the guts and determination to do it. And that's what we all need. And in any of the military training, you've got to be able to complete that to be able to get into your unit at the end of the day. And if you're in the infantry unit or the front line, like the Royal Marines, And the parachute regiment, yeah, it's a very, very hard course to pass, and it's rightly so. They want the best to get through.
Right. That's why they're elite units, and that's why they send them in to do the stuff that normal infantry can't do.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Will, we've been about an hour and a half now. It's been a great time talking to you.
And you,
Turn my phone's vibrating. probably hear it in the speakers because it's sitting on the desk. But yeah, it's been really great talking with you. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but very interesting stories, and learn a lot about what you've gone through, your struggles, and some of your stories you've been told have just been really inspirational,
thank you.
for me, and hopefully our listeners too get a lot of inspiration on it, because what you've gone through just to get the level that you're at in archery has just been, it's amazing what you've done. And the same thing with your military career. What you've
Yeah,
done now it's I'm glad you're still here.
well, it just takes a lot of hard work and dedication. You put the hard work in, you'll get the outcome. People often ask me, what does it take to be the best, to work harder than the rest? I work a lot harder than the rest to make sure that I am at the top of my game, and I'm a hard person to beat. Because that's one of the other things I love about archery. It's not about you against your opponent. It's about you against yourself. It's yourself that lets yourself down, not your opponent.
Right.
So along as I, whatever I've always said to myself was, as long as I know I've done my best, win or lose, I'm happy, because I put my absolute most into that effort to do the best I could. So if the other person beats me, I'm the first person to go over and shake him by the hand, because he deserved it. He beat me on that day, and to me, that's what makes a true champion. I'm not somebody who gets jealous because somebody's better than myself. Well, if they're better than me, I just put in more effort into training to beat them. It's just as simple as that. I just do not have any time for somebody who starts whinging and moaning or starts bringing the team down because he doesn't like anybody below him or above him being better than them. If they want to beat them, then I'll put in the time and effort, but still support your teammates. If they're shooting better than you, shake them by the hand, because they deserve it. They put in that effort to be as good as they are. And that, to me, that's what makes the world go around. Is that same in the armed forces? You've got someone that's fitter than you and beats you over the obstacles. You've got to work harder to make sure you can beat them. It's just as simple as that. It's survival of the fittest at the end of the day.
Well, look and see what they're doing. If they're beating you, whatever it happens to be, what are they doing that you're not? Are they doing something different, or are they just putting in more effort? Are you pushing yourself to that limit and then trying to go beyond, or are you just going up to the limit?
Yeah. One of my, I suppose, biggest abilities that saw me through my archery career is that I could shoot quickly and accurately. So what I would do,
how to respond to that.
So what I would do is I'd actually shoot against a timing clock, and I'm trying to beat the clock with my arrows. So I'm putting myself under a lot of pressure to get those shots off. And that's the training regime that I used to put myself through, and I'm doing the exact same thing now. My speed is now coming back. It's taken me a long time to get it to where I want it to be. I like to have a very, very quick rhythm. It's just a way that works best for me. Because what I found works best for me in archery is having no time to think and just react. If I react, my arrows are going to be super accurate, because I'm taking my brain out of gear, if you like. It's not thinking, it's reacting. And as soon as I do that, my reactions just happen to fall in line, and my arrows all fall on top of each other. It's just something that works for me, and that's what you try and do, is find out what works for you. And that's the key point to it all, really, is just learning how your brain works and what works for you.
And most times if you draw back and you're aiming, and next thing you know, it's like, okay, I'm gonna try, I got to just pull the trigger.
And that's the devil.
Now you're getting bad habits. And when I first learned back tension release, it's like, okay, you draw back, you go through the process. Okay, you aim, you start pulling, and you aim, And if it don't go off within 3 to 5 seconds, you let down, start over because something's
Yeah,
not right.
yeah,
And when
yeah,
you let down, you go through it again because maybe you didn't
yeah.
put enough attention to start with. And
That's your subconscious, because we all use their subconscious to shoot with. It's a subconscious decision to release the arrow. But if
right.
you do something wrong in that procedure of drawing a bow up, and you've done something a little bit wrong, your brain knows that, and that's what stops it from firing.
Yeah.
Or sometimes what I say what happens is you get a brain fart.
Yeah.
What was that shotgun brain fart? I thought of something. Because I've always said the art to archery is the art to thinking of nothing. If you can think of nothing, your arrows will always land where you want them to. As soon
Right.
as you start thinking about something else, you've distracted your subconscious mind, and your arrows will not land where you wanted it to land.
Yeah. And that's why I have my release. So it's the handheld is the hardest spring I can put in my carder, and it
Yeah,
doesn't move. There's no movement in my trigger. It's not
yeah,
a light trigger, it's a hard trigger. And the same
yeah,
thing with my wrist strap. It's
yeah,
there's no movement because as soon as I feel movement, I'm thinking
yeah,
about the movement in the trigger. And
yeah,
now I quit aiming. So now what are you
yeah,
gonna get? Don't know because you're not aiming anymore.
yeah, yeah. That's just, it's one of the things I found with archery is just the art of thinking of nothing. And also reading some sports psychology books as well. I know there's been some great books written by an American author. I'm trying to even think of his name. It's kind of complete out of my head, but there's quite a lot of sports or archery psychology books out there about archery psychology or even aiming psychology. It's quite an interesting thing to read about.
Yeah. Well, what kind of parting thoughts do you have for an archer that's just thinking about starting out in his archery journey?
Well, the first thing I would do is contact a local club and go and have a go session, see whether you're going to like it or not. Because I know in the UK now they actually run beginners courses. So you go to one of these have a go sessions, and then the club will say to them, "Well, do you fancy doing any more?" Then they put them on the training program, and now they actually go through the badge process that Archery GB run. Because it's one of the things I love about archery over here in the UK is Archery GB are actually their own their own body, if you like, for archery. They have all the rules and stuff for Archery GB's rules. But I have to shoot to World Archery rules, which means I have to get all my qualification scores to World Archery rules. So I can't shoot any of the Worcesters or anything like that. But some of the British rounds are out there because there's a lot of different rules over here in the UK for all the different, from the Dark Ages, really. But they all still exist, and there's still people still shoot them. So you got so that's the very first thing I do is go and find a club, book a have a go session, see if you think it's your cup of tea. If you think it is, then they will invite you to join a club and just start a beginner's course, and to start from there. Then you'll be taught how to do it right from the word go, and you just pick up a good shooting form and just work at it, and anybody can get to the top. I'm proof of that. Never been shooting a bow before to get into 2 Paralympic gold medals, in a very short period of time as well.
Yeah, good advice. You just seek out somebody that is doing it that can help you out, and don't struggle like some of us did. And well, we got the bow and we shot. We didn't know what's going on. And you start out hunting, you don't know what's going on because nobody's taught you anything. And now there's so much information out there. Just connect with somebody and just get started. And just find a mentor and find a coach, and you'll do good. And depends on what dedication put in there, what you're looking at. You might be just looking to just have fun once in a while in your backyard.
And that's a good thing
fine.
That's a good thing about archery. It's open to anybody, no matter what the goals are. I mean, it's like the Orco, the club I belong to, just outside Lilleshall. A lot of them are just club archers, and they'll go up there the weekends or the club nights during the week. For me, that isn't for me. I go there early in the morning, so I've got the field all to myself because their field's permanently set up, so it works extremely well for me. I can go and put my training in, and I can come home and have the afternoon to myself.
Yeah.
So for me, it works well. If I want to shoot more, I've got my own 10-meter range in my garage, so I just go and practice my draw, the final points of archery, really, my shooting form.
Yeah,
just
that's what I
work
need to work on.
because that's the one thing that needs to be worked out a lot more than it's not really where your arrows are landing. It's more about your shooting form. Get your shooting form right, your arrows will land where they should.
Right. Yeah. It's all about the form and the fit of the bow. The bow's got to fit you.
Yeah.
That's
and
the first.
the bow up quicker than what you think you should. Listen to your coach.
Yeah.
Because that actually destroy you rather than make you. You actually start going backwards at a phenomenal rate of knots if you're drawing far too much poundage.
Oh yeah.
And I see an awful lot of archers making that mistake as well.
Yeah, I always told them, if you can't draw back like a deer is watching you and slowly draw that back, you're shooting too much weight. If you have to go through all those gyrations and then I see a lot of people, they could draw much more weight if they draw correctly, but you see them to draw across their chest, and then raise it up. Yeah, that's the hard way. You're using the wrong muscles.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, one of the hardest things of being a one archer is actually coming down. I can't come down. If I come down, the bow snatches at me and it really hurts my left arm. So no matter what, I have to unfortunately let the shot go. But that's just one of those things that I learned over the years. Is most of the time I don't make those mistakes, but it does happen sometimes. As long as it's a target, all well and good. Yeah. I've also had it on the other end of the most harshest lessons to also take from archery. This happened to me and Phoebe in 2017, the World Championships, as the mixed team. We were up against the Russians, who are number one. Me and Phoebe have shot a perfect round up until the very last time, my last arrow. So we're all shot 10s all the way through, and we're on for the world record for the perfect score. And then I didn't realise but the grub screw I was holding the spring tension on my trigger come out of my release aid. And I tried hooking up and it dropped off 3 times. And I had 7 seconds left on the shot clock. I managed to get drawn up and get that arrow off, but it landed in the 7. Oh. And that is one of the hardest things that I've had to swallow, is when equipment fails you. Not when you failed yourself, but when the equipment's failed you. Not if that hadn't happened, we would have had that world record. Yeah, because at that point you were doing really good, and then the equipment failed on you, and you didn't know it, and and I was just lucky to get in the target in the short period of time I had left. But it's just one of those hard very bitter pills to swallow. And me and Phil have been through to the gold medal match. But that's just one of those things. That's life. Yeah. No, you can't worry about it. Just go to the next one, and and try and do better next time. Well, now what I actually use it is I actually make sure that I put blue Loctite on all my screws on my release aid, so that it can't happen. Well, you made a mistake. You got beat for it, and fixed it. Not going to happen again. Absolutely, yeah. And also, if anybody wants to watch that World Archery out in Beijing, you see mine and Phoebe's bronze medal match against Italy. It's quite an extremely good match to watch, because right to the end we didn't know where we were won until actually we were told that we were won. There's a very, very good scrap between the UK and Italy. Yeah, that's one thing. A lot of people, I've heard a lot of them say, it's like, don't count your score. It doesn't matter, because if you start thinking, if you'd have thought, it's like, okay, we got a perfect score, I just need one more, and then now you put pressure on yourself, and then you may not you might end up with a 0, because now you're thinking about, okay, I gotta have, and you had a problem, you may not even got this shot off. I've done that many a time. It's been on for a world record, and then on that last shot, I put all that pressure on my shoulders, so I only got to shoot a 7 or a 6, and you absolutely fluff it up. I've been there a few times. Like you start, and now I was like,
Yeah, I don't care. You know, go for it. It's like, just make this one the best I can. And that's why I don't even try and keep track of what the score is. You know, if
Yeah,
you're going as well, what was your last one? It's like, I think it was whatever. And it's like, well, was it 3 ago? I ain't got no clue. Because I just purged it, you know, I didn't even worry about it. And
yeah,
you know, that you just, that's the best way to do it, I think, is just don't even keep track where you're at.
yeah,
And even go back and review in your course. You know, I know guys that can tell you exactly how they shot every shot on a 3D course.
yeah.
Everyone, they know exactly where it was, where it ended and where it shot, what they shot at. And it's like, I can't remember 2 targets ago what I did. You're like, I don't care. You know,
It's
but
it's the
it
past.
does help when you're trying to analyze what went right and what went wrong. But you
Yeah,
know, the time to analyze that is after you made your shot. It's like,
yeah,
hey, what I do it? Okay. All right, now go on to the next one.
yeah, yeah. Well, quite a few archers that you see when they're shooting in competition, they'll actually, after they've shot their 6 arrows in competition, they will then sit down and write down with how they felt when they, you know, when they did it,
Right.
uh, after each, you know, 6 arrows they shoot. So they can look back on it and say, well, that went right, that went wrong. Well, that's where I need to practice. That works for some people. It doesn't work for me, but I mainly can see it on, you know, how I feel the shot's gone. I can see it from what way my arrows are normally landing in the target, because that's one of the things of running shooting with a harness, is you've got to make sure that that release aid is in the right place.
Oh
Because if you
yeah.
go in the right place, it isn't going to work for you. That's one of the hardest things I find for having a prosthesis to shoot with. It's got to be right, because otherwise you're just going to struggle.
Gotta be in that perfect spot.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I know we've been on here quite a while here, so we probably need to go ahead and let you go. And it's been really great talking with you. And I'm sure we'll do this again sometime. And
That'd be great.
yeah, I enjoy these. That's why I do them all the time, and they're a lot of fun. So yeah, my name is Roy Canterbury. I've been your host today on Arch Talk 101 with John Walker, our special and inspiring archer and military man. We've had a lot of good information and it's been inspirational. So make sure you stay tuned for the next one. Our next guest is going to be an inspiration as well. I think all archers are inspirational in their stories. So just stay tuned for the next one and we will see you on the next one.